And you can kind of, I think, also feel and realize this in your everyday life. When you approach anything with a good amount of satisfaction, a good amount of richness, that you have auxiliary power, or you have more of the stuff on the side, and yet you want more of it, you know, just in case you don't get it, just in case you don't meet the expectation, you're not that disappointed. But when you're in a state of poverty and you're laser focused, let me give you perhaps a different example, because all of us, well, you know, you guys want to get like a full-time job somewhere. So you apply for a job. Past experience has revealed that you're not going to get a call. So that's your expectation. I've applied in the past. I haven't received a call. There is no reason for this to be any different. But nevertheless, there are some degrees of hope, an imagination that says, I'll just inflate my resume, lie a little here, lie a little there, and hopefully, whatever. And, you hit send and it's finished. And then you go about your business. You kind of just forget that you even applied to this place after many, many months. All of a sudden, you receive an email or a phone call. You have an interview. Oh, great. And there's a good amount of anxiety, nervousness. And let's just say the position is about for philosophy. And you sit yourself down and you read like 5 books on the history of philosophy, 5 books on ethics, 5 books on logic. So when you go there, and then you prep, what to say about diversity, about equity, and all that garbage that people usually ask you. You don't really expect, to go very far. Past your history kind of just tells you, just remain low key. This is not going to go anywhere. And you go there for some strange reason, you're giggling, you're laughing, you're feeling really comfortable with yourself, with the committee. And you go home, And you say, no, this is social sciences, And they probably have about 20, 30 applicants, people that they've interviewed. Some are from Harvard and Yale. Who's going to hire me from Sac State? Nobody is. And then you get a second call. We'd like to come in, you to come in for, the final interview. You're going to meet with the president, the vice president, and the firing squad. You say, okay, thank you. And all of a sudden, you know what the committee is doing? That they keep enhancing your self-image. They keep raising the bar. And then your expectation, which was basically 1 out of 10, they keep raising it higher and higher and higher. And now that you're in the second round, final round of the interviews, you say there are only 2 or 3 candidates. They're going to choose me. And all of a sudden, you give yourself like 8 or 8.5 or almost 9, maybe 9.5 out of 10, that this job is going to be yours. And you imagine yourself, having an office. You imagine yourself having healthcare. You imagine yourself no longer asking William or Gilliam or Gilliam for a class here, a class there. Once you get this job, you can send them the finger and say, please don't ever, ever, ever call me again. And so you really have raised the bar, and there is so much of you invested in this. And then, you wait and you wait. And after having done the interview, and you wait and you wait and you wait, and they call and say, we are sorry, but we found someone else, or the position closed. And all of a sudden, like a balloon, you get deflated, And it's a funny thing because you entered, you filled out the application, not having any expectations. The world played this trick with you. They kept raising your value. You were worth like $5. The school called you, now you're worth $10. You know, then they call you for the second interview, now you're worth $50. And you kind of walk away from the second interview feeling relatively good about yourself. The committee members laughed. Now you're worth $100. You have forgotten that you were worth zero when you started this. And then the committee has the power to again push you back to zero. But they have whetted your appetite. They have created this fantasy, this narrative about you. And you have done this to some extent on yourself as well by creating the psychological futuristic narratives that I'm going to walk in the classroom, I'm going to be a full-time instructor, they're going to call me professor this and professor that. I'll probably move to this place. What sort of an apartment should I get? Should I buy a house? Should I buy an electric car, a hybrid, or a gas guzzler? What am I going to do? And then when none of these narratives pan out, feel really, really, really bad about yourself. Your value goes down. You have to be profoundly an exceptional human being to walk in the world not caring about anything, where you can invest but don't care about the outcome because you have, you know, um, the idea of being in an open relationship as opposed to uh, just being with a single person. It's something that Jean-Paul Sartre had said many times, both in his writings and in interviews. When you're with a single human being, all of your investments, all of your future rests with this person being in your life. If, on the other hand, you're with 5 people, and should anything happen to this relationship, you'll get crushed because so much of who and what you are just lives in this relationship, this one single human being. If, on the other hand, you're in an open relationship where you have 5 or 6 or 10 companions, the thing about the nice thing, I mean, there are lots of flaws in having an open relationship, but the nice thing about having an open relationship is that no single one of them could hurt you to a point where you need to go to therapy or you need to visit drugs or alcohol. That you kind of divide yourself equally amongst the people you're with. So just in case Bob one day says, Allison, I don't think I want to be with you. You say, Bob, you are 1 of 10. You get lost. You know, you didn't expect to be with him for the rest of your life. You didn't expect to be married to him. You didn't expect to have his children. So that doesn't impact you. Um, so, in ancient Arabia, about 1,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, mothers rarely nursed their kids. They would get married, sometimes not married, they would get pregnant, they would give labor, and this kid would be nursed by nannies, never by the mother. And it's an interesting phenomenon because if the mother was to die, and because the kids were passed around in the community, they were raised by everybody. You had one biological father, true, but you had like 50 male figures who would protect you and nourish you in a variety of different ways. Just in case your father was to die or your mother died, you wouldn't be crushed because you had, something that Confucius said, that if your knowledge comes from the books, there's a good chance that people will come to you expecting that you're a wise person because you say all these knowledgeable, interesting things. And alas, they'll come to find that you're a counterfeit. If, on the other hand, your knowledge comes from your own chest, in other words, you have found a space inside you that is filled with books, i.e., the kingdom of God. You have this wisdom that lives within and you have access to it. You'll be disappointed in the books out there, but never disappointed in things that you have on the inside because you know who you are, what you are. You understand the richness that lives inside you. But going back without rambling too much longer about expectation, it wouldn't be a bad idea, I think, for parents to maybe from a very early age in their kids' life, to just tell them that there's a good chance that life will just crush them. So they don't really go into life expecting to be great. And then they experience, for the most part, the flip side. I mean, it's good to know that marriages, 60% end up just shattering. It's good to know that 80% of us die a painful, miserable death. That about 55% live under the poverty line. That about 70% suffer from some kind of a depression. Because when you know those things, you also understand the difficulties of life, that you stand no chance really against the force of life, unless you can create for yourself a castle where life's forces are not going to enter and crush you. I come home from the night class. It's over now, but like around 9:30. And I don't like animals that much. But there is this cat, who comes and sits out there. And I'm very careful, I kind of walk into the kitchen very gently without making too much noise and just put my head, into the dining room just to see if the cat is there. And the cat is just sitting. And I look at him and all of a sudden an expectation is born inside me, which is, Amir, expect yourself to walk to the garage, expect yourself to grab a bowl, put some cat food, and take it outside and give it to the cat. And this particular aspect of expectation of me being generous, being able to sacrifice my time and energy in giving food to cat, is for some strange reason I have a component of empathy inside me. I didn't want it to be there. It wasn't there when I was coming from school, because I see a lot of homeless people, but I don't really care. I just gonna drive on. But I come home, I look at the cat. Maybe the cat is not hungry at all. Maybe it's just my own projection, But The cat looks at me, and the story that I created, the cat is telling me, I expect my food to be here in like 5 minutes. And that expectation forces me. I become a slave to that narrative, and I go to the garage and do ABCD, and then I come out and Sarah says, "Did you just feed the cat?" I say, "Yeah." The kids gave 5 bags of food to the cat. You're gonna kill the cat, and and now I'm expecting myself to take the cat to the vet, spending like $10,000 on a stray cat that I don't really care for. Also when you look at the, I think, anatomy of this thing called expectation, there is a good amount of yourself that's involved. It's about I. And whenever there is a good amount of I involved, know that there is pride. I think one of the ways that you could kind of tame the I and the force of the expectation is by its counter, which is humility. That, dim the I as much as you can. Dim the force of the self as much as you can, just in case this I or this self doesn't get what it desires. Then it has enough humility that it's not going to get crushed completely. But expectation really, I don't think it's, forgive me for rambling on saying this over and over again. I think it's our lack of understanding of how life really works that we make so much investment into things. Your mom, I don't know if it was an email or a text she sent me. Hi, Carolyn. Where she says, you know, I can't do hopeless anymore. Actually, and really, there is so much of life that is just bleak, and you can't expect the bleakness to go away. It's just impossible. The better you understand, the more you can become intimate with the despair that lives in life. Then it doesn't have the power, as much at least, to kind of push you around, get you disappointed. And even if you become sad and sorrowful, you'll know hopefully how to use the sorrow in a way that is to your advantage. You write a book, poetry, gardening, and all that stuff. It's there is this great story about this young Sufi who goes on this journey to find Shah Shuja. He also is a Sufi, but he's a very rich Sufi. He has tent made out of gold. The pillars that holds this tent together is made out of gold. And this young Sufi just has like a tiny bag. And so this young kid goes to this man, finds him and says, I'm really impressed by what you have. I didn't know Sufis can be like this. And this, Shah Shuja, who's about 60, looks at this young dervish who's about 55 and says, let's go for a walk. And, why do you want to carry your backpack? Just leave your backpack here, And they're going on a walk. And all of a sudden, this young Sufi looks at Shah Shuja and says, I left my backpack in your tent. What if someone steals it? And Shah Shuja, looks at this guy and says, "Good backpack. I left my entire tent and all my belongings in the tent. I'm not worried. And you have a tiny, pathetic little backpack. You probably have like a banana and an apple in there. And, you're so worried about it." And one of the nice things about the Sufi tradition is that you should really have the best of everything that the world has to offer. Have a huge house, have a huge car, have lots of ice cream, have wonderful things. Also know that life can take those things away from you at any time. But go one step further. Before you allow life to take those things from you, you take them from yourself. And the way you take these things from yourself is by kind of being nonchalant about them, by being somewhat detached from them. Not because you're a hippie or an idiot, but because you really just understand that you are not the things that you have purchased or accumulated. The idea that you are naked, you're born naked and you leave naked. Sometimes it's very disappointing. You walk in the classroom, you look at the faces, and not a single one inspires you. You look to your right, one person is like 90, about to die. The other is like high, the other is drunk, the other is daydreaming. Jesus Christ, what the hell am I? This must be Twilight Zone. It can't be real. You say, okay, well, I don't really want to talk to myself. I don't want to talk to these people. Just grab your backpack and leave. I can't tell you the number of times this summer I wanted to just grab my backpack and leave the classroom. Some days, when you look at the people, they are so uninspiring. Um, but, out of respect for their time, their energy, and their fear for their future, you're going to just stay there and ramble on 3 hours. You tell Yusuf, he comes to you like at 5 in the morning. I want to go to Target. It's 5 in the morning. Okay, so at 8? Say, yeah, at 8. You just want to tell him anything to, go back to sleep. 8 o'clock is standing by your bed. Like a dog that licks you. Yeah, what happened? Target. It's 8. Let me have breakfast. No, you said at 8? Go to Target. And, it's a funny thing because he's only 5. And he's already been contaminated with expectation that when someone says we'll go to Target today at 8, he really holds you to your promise. And even if the world is turned upside down, if there is World War V, he doesn't care. He wants to go to Target. And if you don't take him to Target, he'll like beat you, slap you, spit on you, kick you, not talk to you, and far worse, perhaps he just like sits and screams. And then you kind of sit back and say, damn, what is going to happen to this kid when, as parents, we keep telling him you're going to get an A and he receives an A? Or, the 1920s, 30s, 40s, maybe 50s were interesting times. People just knew that the best you could do is live to the age 40, maybe 45, 50. Some people were lucky enough to get to 60 and then they would die. No Alzheimer's, no nursing homes. Most of the diseases that people have today, people in the 1920s didn't have. Now, when someone dies at the age of 40 or 50, it's like a shock. You expect life to end around the age 80. So, it's good to know which expectations are organic and which are part of the social construct. The ones that are part of the social construct go to Hinduism and Buddhism and all these different isms. They create mayas, they create illusions. The SLOs and the PLOs, ridiculous things that academics have kind of fallen into this trap. If they are part of the social structure, in many ways they're just a lie. You have purchased them, you have bought them. If expectations are organic, you should respect them and do the best to fulfill them. Care for the ones that are organic, and should they not pan out, then get depressed. Those are good ways of getting depressed. Valuable. But to buy a lie, to fall into this trap, and now you buy a house at the age of 40 or 30 years of mortgage. When the hell are you going to retire? When the hell can you just sit back and enjoy the house debt free? And, but it's a poem I shared with the class last night. I don't know who the poet is. ز من بشنوی پیر آموزگار مکن تکیه بر گردش روزگار که این منزل درد و جای غم است در این دامگه شادمانی کم است. Why do you depend so much on this wheel called life? It's always turning. There is no stability to it. You think that these waves are going to stay, but slowly they disappear. This is a home for pain and sorrow. Expect to be disappointed every single day, by yourself, by other people. It's good. Yeah, the middle way is Shah Shuja, which is, you know, have the best of everything. Expect good things for yourself, and if you like other people, expect good things for them as well. But also know that there is a great chance that your expectations will never be met. You will never get to a place you want to go. And that's your happy medium. That, you know, around the 15th century came this man named Martin Luther. He fought the Roman Catholic Church, and he had this idea called sudden death. Sudden death is a concept where expect yourself to live to be 150. Nothing wrong with that. But also know that you may sleep tonight and not wake up. Every time, like I'm carrying the kids up and down the stairs in the backyard, um, sometimes I say to myself, what if, as I'm carrying Sophia upstairs or carrying Yusuf downstairs, what if I have a stroke? What's going to happen is I'm going to probably, fall forward. And then it's going to be Yusuf's head that's going to hit first, you know. And when I become aware of this, I feel anxiety a little bit. And then I just put Yusuf down and just hold his hand and say, let's walk down together. I'm not being gloomy. I'm not being bleak. Uh, I just understand that things can happen at any time. Every time I walk to my car after class because of certain incidents that have happened in the past on campus, I am expecting the windows of the car to be broken, the mirrors to be broken. I mean, it's nice that they haven't, but I walk to my car expecting the worst, and luckily, at least up to now, nothing serious has happened. And that's the happy medium. You go home and you pray to God that the people who live at your house, they're in a good mood today because they were in a good mood yesterday, they were in a good mood the day before that. But you also know that human beings, go through 25 different moods a day. There's a good chance that you may go home today and you expected this person to be good, pleasant, but all of a sudden you find them to be vicious. Uh, and you give yourself some options. If I go home and she happens to be pleasant, we'll just sit, we'll have coffee, we'll make some food together, we'll chit chat about the past, and then we'll say goodnight. Just in case I go home and I find her to be in an unpleasant mood, I'm just going to go grab my stuff and go to the gym or go, to my room and lock the door and take a nap. I'm not going to be disappointed because I know how human beings are, and human beings kind of fall into various categories. Some human beings have a good amount of stability to them. They don't change, very often, even if they have mood swings. They know how to be relatively decent and mature about them. Some people don't have any stability. And why the hell, knowing that some people don't have stability because of experience, why the hell would you drive home expecting someone whom you know doesn't have very much stability to be in a good mood? Drive home with the expectation that they're going to be in a profoundly foul mood and they're going to destroy your calmness, your peace, your stability. And hopefully you'll be pleasantly surprised that you thought them to be in a bad mood. They happen to be in a good mood. Well, great. But most often, approach people knowing that they're going to kind of backstab you. It's a protective mechanism. And it's rooted in reality of life. Uh, but You need to have, I think, a really good, not a great, because no one can have a great understanding of anything, but you should have a relatively good understanding of how life works. You know, in, you become attracted to something. An emptiness is created. A desire is born. A want is born. A need is born. You pursue it. You become a political animal. You get it. You use it. And then one day you look at it and say, oh, I don't think I want this anymore. That's not how you began the journey. You thought it's going to be enjoyable, pleasant for a long, long time. It took maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get you disappointed. And that's how things are. You know, whatever relationship you want to get yourself into, know that eventually it's going to bore you. And so you're not going to expect, ridiculous things from it.